Okay, once you've logged in, your desktop should look something like this. Just to point out here that you need to remember to transfer your session to the TBM drive here and your username folder within this. Once you have finished, local files are deleted after 72 hours. Local files will be stored here. And allow some time to process and transfer the images after you've finished. JPEG files will take around 15 minutes for 100 images to process. We have a new Capture One Pro update, and it might look slightly different, although it's remarkably better. So hopefully when you launch Capture One, it will offer you a new session dialog box. Always select a new session. Give your session a title. And we will see the subfolders here. And these will be replicated in your pictures folder. Should you launch Capture One for the first time, it might be that this is the screen that you see. If this is the case, you need to go to File, New Session, and go through the process that we've just done. Okay, so when we launch Capture One, we should be able to see that our camera is connected here, and this would mirror the information on the camera. It might be that you need to wake up the camera, and this can be done by turning off the switch on the wall for the camera. Hopefully this will now kick in and we can see there are various different settings. The important things to remember are ISO 100, that should not be changed. Shutter speed 1/25, that should not be changed either, ideally. The aperture, this enables you to control the brightness. The higher the number, the less bright the image. I'm going to start on 13. Okay, and we can see here that we are set to shoot in RAW format, which gives us the best possible control of our image quality in Capture One. Okay, so to take a shot, I need to press the button here. This will be highlighted white when Capture One is ready to capture. If I press the button, this orange circle tells us that it's processing the image. And here we can see our first test image. So I'm looking at this and I'm thinking it's a little bit overexposed because there's a lot of white in there. So I'm going to stop down to 14. I'm going to use the eyedropper for the preset white balance and just click on something white. I could click around just to get something that I think is much more natural, and that's exactly what I'm looking for. If I now take another shot, Capture One will have remembered those settings. If I now take another shot, Capture One will have remembered those settings. Okay, so I'm fairly happy with that, but there are some things I can do. First of all, across the top here where we have the cursor tools, if I click on the straighten tool, find a straight line to pull through, and that will just straighten things. Also, if I select the keystone tool, selecting the horizontal and vertical keystone, if I pull in the corners here for each of these, there, and hit apply, this will give me what I hope is a perfect rectangle. So if I just click off to any of the other cursor tools, I can see that's what we've got. Okay, so the only other thing I might like to do is to crop the image slightly, and there are lots of options here. I'm going to select original, which is the same aspect ratio as the original camera frame. I'm going to pull this down here, and you can use the guidelines, the rule of third guidelines, just to line it up. Quite nicely there. Okay, I'm just going to move that down there. Okay, so I'm quite happy with that crop, and if I just go to another cursor there, this is my crop set up nicely there. Okay, so if I take another shot, all being well, Capture One would have remembered those settings. I'm going to look at a different piece of work now. So let's take a quick shot. Okay, this is a bit larger. It's just under A0 size, so you can see it's very close to the limits of the frame size that we have. And sometimes what you do get with this is a bit of lens distortion, where you can see there's some barreling there of the image, where it becomes slightly rounded. So that can be controlled by checking the chromatic aberration, diffraction correction, etc. But also here we can see if we can straighten things up a little bit, and it might just help some of that diffraction, which is kind of useful to know. Okay, so with this I'm just going to then straighten an edge, and just to bear in mind that this will crop the image slightly, but that's looking fine to me. Okay, so one of the real benefits of working tetherd with Capture One, and if we go to the exposure tab here, is that we have an opportunity to adjust our Kelvin, which we've already done previously, but with a slider control we can go to the cool or the warm spectrum, and if you double click in the middle it takes it back to where it was, or it should do anyway. So I'm a bit happier with that. And also there's tint between green and magenta, and again double click should take me back to somewhere where I was. Okay, so let's say this is something I'm quite content with. The other thing that we have, and these are really useful tools depending on of course what you're working with, is the exposure. You can brighten or darken. Contrast, which may be of use. So these things are all worth playing with. Brightness, which will brighten up the mid-tones. Saturation, should you wish. Okay, I'm not going to dwell on this too much. And then in the high dynamic range tab you've got the shadows, which is useful for adding some fill to bringing out some detail. Highlight will take any hot spots away. You might want to experiment with taking that down. And there are many other options here, including levels, curves, but one of the ones that can be quite useful for bringing out some detail is the structure. Just adds a little bit of definition. Let me show you this on the zoomed in view. So click the hand there and double click to bring the zoomed in view at, I think it's 200%. And if I just pull up the structure here, you can see, you don't want to overblow it, but you can see you pull up some definition. And the clarity also does that. It kind of sharpens the edges a little bit. So, you know, depending on what you're after, you can explore those a little bit more. I tend not to use too much clarity, but just a tiny bit of structure will help. Okay, so maybe that's getting somewhere more towards it. I'm going to take the exposure down slightly and maybe just warm it up a little. Okay, so I'm fairly happy with that. And now we're going to look at changing specific colours. Okay, what's really useful with Capture One, or the new Capture One 20, is there's a function here that enables you to look at the before and after view. So the original shot and what you've done afterwards. And this can be useful to make comparisons. Also, we have the option for being able to either create a new variant of the image or clone the variant. So a new variant would go back to the original image, but a clone variant would duplicate exactly what we have on screen. So variant 1, that's in the bag, that's ready to go. But variant 2, this is an exact replica of variant 1. But this now means that if I want to, I can, for example, I wasn't too happy with that white balance, okay? So I'm just going to change that a little bit. And this allows us to, if you like, then move forward. So one of the things I really want to show with this quite colourful image is that there are options here to affect the colour balance, either through the colour editor here, where you can select in the Basics tab various different colours you might want to affect. But I think the most useful tool to show you at this point is the Advanced function. And this allows you to use the eyedropper to select a particular colour. And here we can see the target of this particular colour, and this area here we can affect to bring in more colours or less, and we can, in a sense, adjust this so that we can focus on specific colours, okay? Which is a very useful tool to use. So if I now scroll down and select View Selected Colour Range, it will remove all the colours apart from those that I want to select. And if I narrow this colour range, we should be able to see it reducing what's available. And if I broaden the colour range, we can see that we would probably bring out more colours within here. Okay, so maybe that's not working too successfully. But the beauty about this is now I can affect the the saturation. Obviously overdone it, but I might want to just pull it up a little bit. Again, double click to get it where it was. This, I can affect the hue, the lightness. I'll make it darker. And the smoothness is the area around here as to how refined we are to the colours blurring into other colours. So if I bring that back on again, so we can see I've improved on that. Now, if I want to adjust the blues, again I can improve on the saturation slightly, maybe the lightness here to pull out some of the marks we've got in there. And similarly, if I hit on the greens, I'm gonna just expand that a little, if I can, and just gonna change the hue to warm it up slightly, maybe improve the smoothness and the saturation just a tiny bit. Okay, so this has given me the opportunity to change things as I see fit with the piece of work. Okay, now if I go back to capture and take a shot, what we can see is it's reverted back to those normal settings as opposed to these, but you can see that the variant gives me the opportunity to make changes that remain with the variant. Okay, so what's useful is if I had work that I wanted to apply these settings to, if I copy those settings, select the next image and apply them, they are now applied. And you can do this to as few or as many of the images as you want. So I'm just going to take another shot. And this time you can see, because I've followed on from the previous image with the settings made to them and not a variant, I've recorded those settings. Okay? So I could then continue, if I wanted to take more shots in that vein, or I could go back and adjust various different settings to anything I want, really. Now, the great thing about all this is once we've taken our photographs and we're happy with them, you can select as many or as few as you want. So Command Option A will select all the images here, and then if we want to process, we will go to the Output tab, and then you can decide on the various different options. Probably at this point I want to just go as full-size JPEG. It's possible to add any recipe that you want. They're called recipes. So just say I wanted here to make this a Photoshop document. Okay, so the ICC profile is Adobe RGB 1998. You should always do that. So just say I want to do this as a full-size PSD. Okay, So that would be my choice. So what you need to do is decide on the option you want to go with. In this instance, I'm going to go for JPEG because it's quicker. You can select more than one, by the way. However, this will take longer. So once this is set up, and you need to press process. The progress bar will tell you how long this is going to take. And also we can see that these are going to users DRG pictures, so that's the same output as I indicated earlier. Okay. Once these are processed, we can find these processed and labeled as per the session title in the output folder. And should you wish access to the original raw files, these will be here. So I make a habit of keeping these because these are your digital negatives, but for many of you it may just clog up storage, or maybe something you don't need to do. So it might be that in this instance that you just wish to save the output files, which are your JPEGs, which are processed. Okay, that's it for the Copy Studio. I'm working tethered with Capture One for now. So to show you something a little different, and maybe encourage you to think about some other things that you can bring to the Copy Studio. Let me take a shot. Okay, so here you can see I've got a bit of OBS board. This can be purchased from B&Q for not very much, or probably the Sculpture Studios might have some down there if you ask nicely. And it just offers a completely different look and feel to how you might photograph a portfolio, perhaps. So just to make some quick changes to this, I'm quite happy with the white balance in this case. Just going to take it down a bit with the exposure, contrast up a little bit, and maybe bring up not the saturation, no, we're going to bring up the structure, etc. I'm going to look at the colour here. Select the red, add a bit of saturation to the red because that's quite important. And then I'm going to look at the straightening tool. No, let's go here. So every time you pull the straightening tool, you can change what you're trying to straighten. And finally, I'm going to go to the crop tool. I'm going to drag that in at the top and the bottom there, and just line that up. There you can see what we're getting there, so I'm quite happy with that. And what I can now do is take another shot. All the settings will be remembered, but just say I've got a series of work, all of a similar size. What I'm able to do there quite nicely is I'll show you this. So I'm going to place some markers down, which we can see here with the shot. Okay, so these enable me to just imagine I've got more than one piece of work of this ilk. You're going to have to bear with me, but let's give you an example by turning this upside down. Okay. So I'm going to move the markers and take a shot. So you can run through a series and position stuff in the same place, and it means you can work quite rapidly here. And make sure that once you've got your settings right, they will be maintained. So that's it for now for the Capture One tethered copy studio session. Thank you very much.